Well, I am just so delighted to be able to share some reflections about what's known as the new cosmology or the universe story in these surroundings, amidst these ancient cypress trees and with the sounds of nature behind me, around us. And I'm just delighted to hear the sound of a rooster. Because one of the metaphors I like to work with is the idea of energy. And how energy simply is transformed but never annihilated. And I feel that way about our ideas, the ideas that have sustained us for centuries, the traditions, the beliefs, the values, the assumptions. And one of the ways this metaphor holds for me is that very often when we're confronted with a new worldview, we think that it's opposed to or in contradiction to the worldview that we hold. And often, as in the present time, people feel that if they were to adopt the new story of the universe, that it would mean they have to leave their traditions behind. And the metaphor of a chicken is so apt because, you know, if you were to look inside an egg, a fertile egg, you'd see that little spot where there's a fertile cell. And as it begins to grow and multiply, this new unfolding hen is really absorbing into itself, differentiating into itself the very substance of the egg. And as its days and weeks unfold, it absorbs the total substance of the egg. In a way, the egg has become the chick. The chick is that substance, but it's been radically transformed so that the egg has itself evolved into a new form, which is this living chick. And then there comes a time when the chick has absorbed all of it. There's nothing left inside the shell. And it has two choices. It can hope and sit and wait that there may be an infusion of some new food coming through, and if it does that, it will die. Or it can do something it's never done before, and that is listen to the will for life and break through, crack open at great effort that shell which has been its whole world. And when it does break through, it suddenly realizes it hasn't died, and it's in a whole new universe. And its nourishment will be far more diverse, interesting, delicious. Its whole existence will just explode with creativity and possibility. And I think it's a good metaphor for how we, at this stage of our evolution as human beings, having drawn immense energy and sustenance and nourishment from the thoughts and the beliefs and the values and that collective wisdom that has shaped us as a species, no matter what diverse tradition we come from, that we have absorbed it. And the kind of shell in which all of that understanding and wisdom evolved was a worldview. It was a mental shell. And it was made up of the beliefs and the values and the understandings of our ancestors. And it was laid down over generations and generations. And we've absorbed it. We are that consciousness. And suddenly, the vessel in which all of that was shaped is cracking open. And there's a kind of crisis in that, insofar as we're not sure whether what's out there inviting us to experience our existence will demand that we cut ourselves off from what has sustained us. And I think we're at a point where we're realizing what's being opened is not necessarily a contradiction or something that's going to enforce the abandonment of our consciousness, but that our consciousness itself is that old energy, is that psychic energy. And it itself, this consciousness, is invited to evolve its own possibilities within life outside of the shell of an old worldview. And that's what this session is about. It's about how what is a different cosmological order. I just finished reading a wonderful book called Galileo's Daughter, which I recommend highly. It's a wonderful insight into the times in which Galileo lived. And it's a correspondence. Much of it is built on the correspondence between his eldest daughter, who was a cloistered nun in a Franciscan monastery, and who was his deepest confidant, and who supported him through the angst of the years in which he was trying to bring his insights into the period in which he lived. And what was played out in that was the reality that as Galileo was finding through his telescope and through his experiments ways to confirm the insights of Copernicus, he was trying to share that with the culture that was embedded in an Aristotelian worldview, a philosophical understanding of the cosmos. And because he was trying to give a perceptual change, but it could only be heard in a philosophical context or a religious context, a theological context, he couldn't penetrate into he couldn't bring his thoughts forward. And all he was talking about was that this telescope provided the ability for everyone in the culture to look and see that the Earth was not the center of the universe with the sun and the moon and stars going around it. He was just saying the way the universe is not. What everyone else heard was, if that's true, everything we believe in, everything we hold, everything we teach, all the values of our culture can't be true. And the fear and rejection from that is what silenced him and pushed him into true silence. And there's a way in which what the new universe story is suggesting is very similar. What people like Brian Swim and Thomas Berry and all of the physicists and astrophysicists and scientists who are showing us through these immense new instruments that we have that Galileo would have died for, what they're showing us is a far vaster understanding of the universe than even his little telescope could open up. But if it is so, all of our traditions, all of our institutions, our economic systems, our religious systems, our ethical systems, our agriculture systems, healing systems, commercial, governmental, all of them will be called into question because they are all based on a fundamental belief that no longer holds up when you break through the perceptual shell and see the universe as it has always been. So I'd like to just share some reflections that might shed light on why the energy, the psychic evolved and with which we've been endowed over the 5,000 years of Western civilization, why that energy simply is no longer available for us to shape our lives, our future, or to enable us to break through the terrible crisis that we find in this moment at beginning the 21st century. We all know that the economic system is just not adequate. More people are living in poverty than ever. The earth is being ravaged. And yet the system, the commercial establishment, as Thomas Berry would say, isn't filled with bad people. Now, there could be bad people in them, but mostly they're good people going to work, having a job, doing something they know how to do that's useful for people in terms of products or goods. But at the same time that they're doing that, there is this total extraction out of the substance of the earth, which is causing the diminishment of life in a way that the earth has never experienced in the last 65 million years. And unless we can understand that there's more than good or evil at play here. We now are not going to have the capacity to transform these crises into a new possibility for life to break out of this shell and find nourishment from a far greater and expansive place of inspiration. So I'd like to spend just a little time on the idea of worldview and how that does shape a civilization. Now, Thomas Berry in The Dream of the Earth talks about the idea of cosmology.